There are many of our consumers in our community that drive Hondas, Toyotas, Acuras, Subarus, Lexus, Lexi. Is that the plural of Lexus? I'm probably going to get email on that, and Scions. And there's one of our local businesses that happens to be, I think, the paradigm for what a business in the automotive service industry should look and act like. It is just a joy for us to be able to bring to you businesses with this level of integrity and quality, and to ask our community to support this business is just so big for us, because we can really impact a significant part of our community with one business, one that services that many of our listeners. So if you have any of those makes or models, or you know anybody that has one of those makes or models, make sure that they get this interview. And you can find it on our Facebook a few days after the show, and share it with your friends that have these products, because you're going to be doing them and yourself a favor. It is, again, a joy to bring to our show Tom O'Donnell, owner of Preferred Auto Care in Reno. Thanks for joining us again today.
Thanks, Mitch.
You know, we've asked you to really come on regularly, to really take on that education and knowledge is power basis, because we want our consumers to really understand what we're up to. And you define it as a business the way you operate. It's really the standard of the industry. And I believe once people come to a business like yours, they're done. They'll no longer accept lower quality, inferior service from other businesses. And today you're taking on discussing the manufacturer scheduled maintenance, and the potential that may, for some drivers, not be what you would recommend if they'd talk to you about their specific driving habits. So let's talk a little bit about manufacturers' scheduled maintenance, what they're in place for, and why that may not be sufficient for some drivers. Why do you think the manufacturer has specific maintenance schedules? Let's start there, because there's a whole school of opinions on this.
Well, they primarily have the scheduled maintenance recommendations for longevity of the vehicle. But in a lot of cases, people do not read into it right.
Well, for an example, if you're a manufacturer and you're trying to sell your car, one thing you might want to do is to advertise a low maintenance cost, correct?
Oh, yeah.
And then at the same time, you want to be able to make sure that through that scheduled maintenance as a manufacturer that you're not paying huge claims. So you want to have enough maintenance to keep your claims down, but not so much maintenance that you become too expensive to maintain and people aren't buying your product.
Yeah, and I think most of the time you're not doing enough in the vehicle if you go by their thin guidelines.
Well, and I agree with you, and this is why I really want the community to wrap their minds around that. Basically, they're saying this is just enough to get you through the warranty period, but I may be the consumer that wants to keep this car for 200,000 miles, doesn't want to buy a car every 2 years, that once that warranty is over, I'm still concerned.
Well, the problem is that if you don't maintain it to a better standard, I mean, they'll get you 100,000 miles, at least on the vehicles we work on, and probably without very, very few problems. The problem is if you plan on keeping it for a long time, you're going to have problems.
And you could have prevented some of those with a little bit more aggressive maintenance schedule, is what your opinion on it is.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree with you 1,000% on this issue. So let's talk about the different driving types, and why the manufacturer's looking at nationally with 70,000 cars they'll sell in a year. The typical maintenance schedule may have just a middle of the road standard. But there's people that fall on both ends of that standard that it's insufficient or not the right maintenance plan for. So let's talk about the different driving types. Let's start with the short distance driver and how that impacts their maintenance schedule.
Well, the short distance drivers are the worst. They're the hardest on the vehicle. They start the car up. It's running rich because that's how cars have to run rich to stay running when they're cold. And then one of the byproducts of the catalytic converter is water. So what happens is you drive your car to the store. It loads up your exhaust system with water. It never gets hot enough to evaporate the water, and then your exhaust system's contaminating. And on the other hand, with the rich fuel mixture, you get a little bypass past the rings, and then the fuel vapors are contaminating the oil. Most of the worst cars that come in with darkest, dirtiest oil are usually the people that drive very little.
So we're talking about I'm retired. I just get in my car. I go 2 miles to the closest grocery store and back once a week, or just down to my friend's house. But I'm really not getting out there, getting that car up to normal operating temperature. And the manufacturer's maintenance schedule for me may be totally insufficient.
Oh, it's totally insufficient. And we'll hear people say, well, I don't drive anywhere. I go, yeah, but you didn't drive anywhere for 2 years.
Right. So you've seen this. So, in 2 or 3 years, they've got 2,000 miles on a car and they're thinking they don't need an oil change.
Exactly.
And so let's talk about, for that driver, what I want to maybe help somebody who's going, well, that is me right now, what they really should be doing and in frequency if that's the type of driver they are.
They should. I would recommend changing the oil. Those type of drivers, probably once every 6 months. Definitely do not go longer than a year. One thing like oil changes, primarily like if you bring it to a reputable place, well, such as ourselves, we'll check your fluids, we'll check your tire pressures. Well, if you're changing your oil once a year, you might be even driving on flat tires.
Because they do lose air as well. You're absolutely right. Well, in this process now, we're talking to somebody that now is going to go from, well, I don't need an oil change until I get to 7,000 or 10,000 miles. That's what the manufacturer said. They could go to a manufacturing service center that may have included their oil changes, and they'll tell them, no, not yet. We won't do it.
Well, most of those cases, this part really bugs me, is because if they did not have that free service policy, they would sell them everything. But since they have this free service policy, some of them are up to like 25,000 miles, and they say, well, you're only going to change your oil every 10,000. If you try to change it prematurely before 10,000, they won't do it.
Because it says free maintenance, they're expected to pay for it if you wanted to do it prematurely.
Exactly.
And they don't want to pay for that, even if it would have been appropriate.
Right.
So you're right. I agree with you. It kind of reverses the problem, and it leaves the consumer with maybe not really taking care of their car to the level that they want it to last for them. So let's talk about the, one of the things that I think we talked about is, and the reason why you're saying a year, is we live in a pretty extreme environment in Northern Nevada. So even if I'm just going those short trips and 2,000 miles in 2 or 3 years, that we're still dealing with weather changes in the extreme here in Northern Nevada.
Oh, yeah. We've got the cold weather, the hot weather. You're running with your air conditioner on, your air conditioner off. There's all kinds of variables, dirt, dust, you name it, bumpy roads.
And so those really impact the life expectancy or longevity of the oils in a vehicle as well.
Well, not the bumpy roads, though.
Not the bumpy roads. Thank you for the integrity behind that. And let's talk about the driver then that's really going, and you shared this with me, and I thought this was really interesting. You had a client that commutes from here to Minden-Gardnerville every day.
Well, actually, it was Fallon, from Fallon all the way up to Parr Boulevard. And they used to bring it in every 7,500 miles. Well, most people, I would never recommend that. But every time we drained the oil after 7,500 miles, it still looked new. And if they changed it every 3,000 miles, we'd see them every 3 weeks, So so for that person, it's really, I think, different. People think, well, I'm driving my car a lot. I got to change my oil even more regularly. But what you're saying is the operating temperature of the engine and the oil changes and allows it to not wear as rapidly. Oh, when you get just in like let's say cruise control mode, 65, 70 miles an hour, and you're doing that for a long period of time, those are easy miles. They're easy on your engine, easy on your oil, easy on everything.
And what about the person that throws their jet skis or their little trailer behind them, and then they're climbing up over these passes, going up and down from the lake, maybe commuting business. So, they live up a lake, they come down in Reno to work, or they're going over those mountain passes, towing things. What recommendations would you have for them?
I'd change it every 3,000 miles.
And what makes that kind of driving more damaging to the viscosities?
Well, it's just everything gets hotter, it breaks down easier, you're under load, everything's under pressure.
One of the, I think, reasons that we exist is we say to the community that the coveted prize as a consumer is to obtain the highest quality products and services fairly priced. And we're careful how we say that, because the highest price is not necessarily the best quality product or service. It could just be somebody that's greed driven. And the lowest price is often inferior products or services. But the highest quality and the fairest price is that coveted goal. And you achieve that. And for an example, the same services that you're providing the community over what a franchise store might charge, you typically save people from regular maintenance to repairs how much money?
Well, it depends. Some stuff it's not that much, but other stuff it's tremendous. One of the things that some of these places do, which I don't agree with, is that say you wanted to bring your car in for a timing belt water pump. You'll call places up. They'll give you an estimate. It won't include sales tax, won't include shop supplies. And then lots of cases, they won't even tell you about the other drive belts. Well, the other drive belts come off to get to the timing belt and water pump. So those are always included in our price. When we give the price, we'll give you the price with tax, labor, everything. Something can always happen. So there are other moving parts and stuff. It's not real common, but it is a possibility.
But when you're quoting that service, you're quoting it to include these things you know are going to be there. And what they're doing is they're trying to make it sound like they're less expensive to begin with. And then once it's all torn apart, they come back and say, oh, by the way, these belts should be done while we're there. And by the time they're done, they've paid more than if they came to you and dealt with integrity to begin with.
Oh, we see that all the time.
And this is why I wanted to have that conversation. I know this happens, and I want our community to be aware when they're looking at comparison that they really itemize what they're getting. Because if they compare apples to apples, it's very clear. If you don't just get this is how much this service costs, it's tell me what I'm getting in this service. And its cost, so that you can compare another service to it, find the missing components, and then be able to say, now I see the true cost compared to each other.
Yeah, well, they try to compare apples to oranges, and you have to be real clear exactly what you're getting.
You know, Tom, one of the reasons that I really love when people come to your shop is it's even in the philosophy of how you value them and their time. Appointment only. I mean, this is really big because you're not willing to just take cars in and back them up out in the parking lot.
No, we work by appointment only because, you got to get the cars done on a timely fashion. If you promise a car, you promise a car. If you promise it, you got to follow through. And what happens, I've seen it other, people will overbook, and then they're going through their papers. Okay, who are we going to call? Who are we going to call up and say it's not going to be done? Well, that's ridiculous. No, if you take in what you can do, and that's it. Things happen, but not all the time.
Well, and you still do your best to accommodate oh my gosh, I have a problem right now I need your help with. I've seen you do that.
Oh, yeah, because they didn't. It's not something they could schedule. It's just one of those things. And we do our best to accommodate those two.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons, the quality and the fair pricing policy, your commitment to keeping your word, even when it's an appointment and when they're going to get their car back, that's really allowed you to be in business as many years. And I love this. It's been how many decades?
21 and a half years.
And, one of the other beautiful things for our community is in a lot of businesses, they walk in and across that counter, they're dealing with a salesman. And that's not the case with you. You manage the repair tickets and the estimates. So there's nobody that's going to be selling your customer something that's not warranted.
Oh, by all means. We had a gentleman there the other day. He had his Toyota Sienna, has 280,000 miles on it. And he basically was retiring it. He was bringing it to his home in Arizona and was going to be driven probably 3,000 miles a year. Well, he needed rear shocks. He needed some other stuff. He had some fluid leaks, but it's not going to break down on him. So he says, no, I'm driving it 3,000 miles a year. It's just the second vehicle. It's going to stay there. So we did just minimal repairs so he can drive it for the next 5 years without any problems.
And you didn't try to sell him all these other things to make it that perfect car because you considered his use and his needs.
No, it was what he needed. It was to
accomplish his goal.
Yes, exactly.
And I think I want our community to really start to hear what a core business with core values sounds like and acts like. It is only in the light of failure that that individuals truly find out if they supported the right business. And I'm here to testify for the fact that in the light of failure, which every business has them, that you are of that integrity. You take care of your customers. It's why we have invited you to be such a regular part of our commitment to our community. And we really want to thank you for that. Tom, how do they get a hold of you? And again, please make sure that if somebody's listening, all the different makes that they can have serviced with you.
We're at 1705 Gregg Street, Rock and Gregg. Our phone number is 355-7033. We're specialists on Hondas and Acuras, Toyota, Lexus, and Subarus.
And I threw in Scion because I realized earlier that's a Toyota product, so you'll service those now too. And there's some Scion listeners. I want them to come to you too. So make sure that you see Tom O'Donnell over at Preferred Auto Care. And if you use him, we're sure that you're going to understand what your money and your power really means to support not just a quality business, but a quality human being who really cares about his community. And thank you for taking that on with us, Tom.
Thanks, Mitch.